Disney's California Adventure is the other park at the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim, California. It opened in 2001 right across the midway from Disneyland, making it super convenient to park hop, visit downtown Disney. Everything is right there. The place was designed to be very inclusive of California's most iconic locations, and it was all wrapped up into one central theme park, which right away was a dumb idea. No one in California wants to visit a California theme park. And I feel like a lot of that also comes down to audience. Disneyland is not an international destination like Walt Disney World is, at least not to the same scale. A lot of the people that visit Disneyland are locals, people who live in California or in nearby states to California. So why would you want to visit a theme park that has an LA themed section when you're a short drive away from LA? So you can probably see where this is going. When the park opened, it was met with negative reviews and attendance wasn't at all what they hoped. I know Bob Iger even went out and basically called the park mediocre. So just over 10 years after it opened, the park did this whole rededication where they unveiled a bunch of new investments, entire sections that were redone to basically fix their mistakes. The problem is, now we are left with a weird mishmash of everything and it doesn't work. You have an original idea that sucked and you're trying to fix it by putting in all of these different intellectual properties and characters, and now you just get this discombobulation of everything. So if you haven't figured out by now, I'm not a huge fan of this park. I first visited when I was a little kid. I've gone back many times since then. I've seen the changes that have come about here. Some I've liked, some I've been kind of about, and others I haven't liked at all. But that all being said, overall, I would say the park is better than it used to be. I mean, this is the park that on opening day debuted Superstar Limo, and we all know how that went. But they've still got a long way to go. So in this review, I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and discuss some things I'd like to see changed. Starting first off with the name. This park needs a rebranding badly. Not saying it has to happen right now, but this park one by one is having less to do with California. There's definitely better options out there, especially since the original name wasn't good to begin with. It doesn't flow off the tongue at all. I hate even saying the name. Most of the time I just abbreviate it as DCA, which is what I'm going to do in the rest of this video. So what does the visit here look like? You first start by entering Buena Vista Street, and right away, it's pretty forgettable. Contrast that to the park literally right across the midway with one of the most iconic entrances of all time. I would go as far as saying that I think every other park in Southern California has a more memorable entry experience than DCA. I never actually saw the original entrance that they went with, but just looking at pictures, I would even argue that I think that looks to be more memorable. Yeah, sure, it's kind of cheap looking, but at least it had character. The former area was called Sunshine Plaza. When they overhauled it, their idea was to evoke an LA theme from the 1920s when Walt Disney arrived. So you see like a red trolley going around, occasionally some street performers. But this isn't an area that you're going to want to spend time in. All it is a jumping off point so you can go somewhere else in the park. But how so many places are picturesque, have that one like photo spot, point of interest that everyone wants to gather around, you don't have that here. So already not off to a good start. But don't worry, we're just getting going here. To your left is Hollywoodland, and this is really broken up into two areas. You have your main boulevard, and then you have the studios. Hollywood Boulevard here is okay. If anything, this is more of your main street. It's very classic, but lackluster. I compare it to Disney's Hollywood Studios in Orlando. They have Sunset Boulevard there where you're staring down at Tower of Terror. So iconic, it has that picture-perfect moment, and instead, here at the end of the street, you have a theater and a fake backdrop that makes it look like the street keeps going. But in some places it works, like I think about Universal Studios Florida. The New York section, kind of where our Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket is, they do a similar effect, but this is way more at the forefront. It's noticeable. What should happen is instead of the theater there, you should have a really cool attraction there. But that's not even the worst part. I mentioned the studio section. Oh boy, guys, this is bad. It needs to go. All of it. Bulldoze it, start over. This is right near the front of the park, and this space can be used for so much better. It is ugly and useless. The only thing that we have here is a Monsters, Inc. ride. That's the former Superstar Limo attraction, just reskinned, and it is not up to the usual Disney standard. The only other thing there is an Avengers Superstore, which is completely useless now that you have an Avengers Campus with numerous stores in it. I feel like this is easily the next major expansion area. So that's to the left when you walk in. If you go to the right at your entrance, you'll hit Grizzly Peak. This is like where you have the rapids and Soarin'. It's meant to evoke the feeling of like the national parks. It bumps up against the Grand Californian, one of the big resorts here. I'd say overall the area just feels kind of plain. Like there's not a whole lot of reason to walk around many of these paths. Probably the least trafficked section of DCA. If you choose to do the Soarin' here, this one is the original. It originally started off as Soarin' over California. Now it's Soarin' around the world, the same as Florida's. Every once in a while, though, they bring back Soarin' over California. So I have done each. I definitely prefer Soarin' around the world. I just feel like Soarin' over California isn't as interesting, and it definitely feels outdated. But I will say the queue for this version is a heck of a lot better than Florida's. I love that you're in like a hangar bay. That's sweet. And I haven't done the rapids here since I was a kid. I remember really liking it, but it's definitely visually impressive. Again, evokes that idea that you're in one of California's national parks. I think specifically they were inspired by Yosemite. Now, the newest area of this park is Avengers Campus. This was the original Avengers Campus. There's now another one over in Paris. I would say this one is definitely better, but still needs some love. And it will be better after the new Avengers Dark Ride opens. At least I sure hope so. I liked how many characters they had walking around. They actually delivered on that promise, unlike the promise they made with Galaxy's Edge, how you have like barely any characters walking around there. So I thought that was good. Guardians is obviously the standout attraction here. So much fun. It's a long ride cycle in combination with screens, drops, good storytelling, and it's a visually impressive structure. Unfortunately, though, the other attraction in this area is Web Slingers, which is just bad. The whole land replaced Bugs, which was an area I visited as a kid, but I don't really remember it. I know some people miss that area, but I think it is good that they decided to capitalize on Marvel with it being such a huge franchise. But personally, I just would have taken a different approach with this land. There's actually several videos about Avengers Campus on the channel already. Go check that out if you want kind of more in-depth thoughts on that land. So I'll move on to Pacific Wharf. This is your cool like San Francisco section. This is actually one of the better themed areas here. It's just kind of small. It's currently in the process of being changed over to San Francisco from Big Hero 6. I'm actually really curious to see what changes are made to bring this to life. I think a Big Hero 6 attraction would be really cool. I don't think they'll do it, but it'd still be nice. As of right now, I do enjoy walking around this little area. It has the best food in the park, in my opinion. You can get soup in a bread bowl here. You have a section dedicated to like Ghirardelli Square. So lots of chocolate, yummy desserts, but we'll see how it is after the changes. Next up, Pixar Pier. This area is just a plus-size carnival. The original idea is so you had Paradise Pier paying homage to classic boardwalk-style amusement parks, so think like Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. They put in California Screamin', which was a steel coaster meant to look like a wooden coaster. It's just a bad ride. I've never liked it, but now that it's in Incredicoaster, I really don't like it. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I don't know. I'm very passionate about that subject, but I'll save that for another video. The problem with Pixar Pier, though, is now that they've retrofitted Paradise Pier to tie in all of these different characters, it just doesn't feel right. And I'm not opposed to bringing Pixar characters into a themed land. I just think an original idea would have been so much better. But that's the problem, right? What do you do when you have a sucky theme park land that you want to change over, make into something better without starting from scratch? Before we move on to the next area, I will mention something that I've always thought was strange, that there's a Ferris wheel here. I mean, it looks cool, don't get me wrong. This is that like picture moment that you're talking about, where you have Incredicoaster plus the Pixar Pal Around, which is a horrible name, and whoever named that should be ashamed of themselves. It's just very unconventional to see a Ferris wheel at a Disney park. But not just that, this is a good Ferris wheel. It has a swinging option, which the only other place I can think of that has something like that is Dino's Wonder Wheel in New York. It's a really fun ride, awesome experience. If there is a downside though to it, the photo ops kind of suck because you're in a literal cage. And you have great views of Incredicoaster and the nearby highway, but all your photos or videos kind of end up looking like this. Next land, Paradise Gardens. You got a couple attractions here, including the Little Mermaid, pretty much the exact same as the one at Magic Kingdom. This one's just without the impressive queue. It's just kind of in a warehouse. You also have Goofy's Sky School, which is an abomination of an attraction and does not belong here. Why is a wild mouse at Disney? And not just a regular wild mouse. This is a bad wild mouse. It's janky, it's trimmed to death, it looks rusty. The theming is like literal plywood cutouts. It's just so cheap looking and tacky, it needs to go. Which brings us to our final land. I saved the best for last. It's Cars. Radiator Springs. This is just incredible. I was never big into the Cars movies, but frankly, I don't really care. This land is just so brilliantly done. There's so much to look at. The color palette is amazing. This backdrop that they went with literally looks like Zion National Park. The main attraction here is Radiator Springs. It's one of the 3 rides at a Disney park to use this style system. You might be familiar with like Test Track at Epcot, or Journey to the Center of the Earth at Disney Sea. Those are the other 2. But this one is racing, and that just levels up the experience. Plus, you have so many amazing animatronics. It's well-paced, long ride cycle, just overall brilliant attraction. There's a reason that this often has the longest line in the park. If you're trying to get on it a couple times, I do recommend the single rider line. Because you sit 3 across, they're always pulling single riders, but I think a lot of people have figured that out, so sometimes even the single rider line is backed up a bit. But this is the real winner here at DCA, this and Mission Breakout. If you took those two and put them in the main Disneyland park, I would never come to this property. But because they have these two and I really like them, yeah, I always end up spending the money to come here when I don't really want to. I don't like this park. But they have some of the best rides at the resort, so screw you, Disney, for doing that, because now I feel stuck. But that's what they want, right? They want you to spend money on a park hopper. It just feels kind of wrong, though, that this park would cost the exact same amount as the main Disneyland park when this just has way less to do. I know they're trying to do better. I mean, the next big ride that we'll see is that new addition in Avengers Campus. But there's still a lot that I wish could happen here. Many areas here just don't even feel like Disney, you know? Like, when you go into those other parks, they transport you to this magical place that you can't visit in real life. A land of fantasy, adventure, the future, Star Wars, whatever it is. And here they transport you to places that are sometimes half an hour away. San Francisco's a 6-hour drive. Like, it's just weird. There's sometimes I wish that they could just start this park over from scratch. Because we've seen Disney do some incredible things. And at DCA, you get a bit of both. So let me know down in the comments below if you've been to Disney's California Adventure, if you agree with the points that I brought up. If you disagree, please let me know why. I'd love to hear your take on it. And of course, stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios. We'll see you next time.